History is full of people who refuse to let one chapter become the whole story. Confidence isn't the requirement, it's what you get after. You've been told confidence comes first, that once you feel ready, you'll finally start. That's backwards, and it's the reason you're still waiting. Last week I had coffee with a friend who told me about a business idea he'd been sitting on for months. Honestly, it was solid. It solved a real problem. He knew exactly who it was for. He'd already figured out how he'd sell it. The idea wasn't the problem. So I asked him, "When are you going to launch it?" He looked down, smiled, and said, "Not yet. I want to feel a little more confident first." I asked one more question. "When do you think that confidence is going to show up?" He sat there for a second. Then he laughed. "I have no idea." He said it while he was turning his coffee cup in a slow circle on the table, not really looking at me. He had a notebook next to him, the corner of it worn soft, full of notes he'd clearly been adding to for months. Pricing ideas, a rough logo sketch, a list of the first 10 people he wanted to reach out to. This wasn't a guy without a plan. This was a guy with a plan, and no green light. So I asked him one more thing. "What's the worst that could happen if you launch tomorrow?" He actually thought about it. Not a quick answer. A real pause. Like he was checking the question for a trap. Then he shrugged. "Honestly, nothing. Nobody's expecting it. Nobody's watching. If it flops, I just quietly try something else." That's the part that stuck with me. He wasn't scared of a real consequence. He was scared of a feeling he hadn't had yet. I couldn't stop thinking about that, not because it's unique, but because it's incredibly common. Maybe you've been thinking about starting a business, launching a channel, applying for a new job, asking for a raise, or having a conversation you've been avoiding for months. You know what you want to do, you just don't feel ready. Weeks pass, then months, sometimes years, and almost nobody tells you this. Confidence usually isn't what starts the process. It's what shows up after you've already started. This video is about why that first step feels so much harder than it should, and why the answer probably isn't what you think. It isn't laziness. It isn't willpower. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is, it was designed for a world that no longer exists. Rewind about 100,000 years. You're walking through the wilderness. No roads, no streetlights, just a narrow path you've never seen before. No idea what's waiting on the other side. Maybe food, maybe shelter, maybe a mountain lion. Which brain survives? The one that relaxes or the one that hesitates? Hesitation wasn't weakness. It was survival. The cautious brain wins almost every time. That instinct never left us. Only the dangers changed. We're not worried about predators anymore. We're worried about presentations, interviews, posting our first video, walking into a room full of strangers. None of that is life-threatening. But your nervous system doesn't always know the difference. That's why your heart races before a presentation. Your stomach tightens before an interview. Your mind fills with "what if I embarrass myself?" Those thoughts feel like truth. They're not. They're predictions. Your brain's way of talking you out of the risk. Think about the last time you spoke in front of a group. Sweaty hands, racing heart, mind going blank. Your body responds to public speaking almost the same way it responds to standing at the edge of a cliff. Different situations, same biology. Because your brain isn't asking whether something is actually dangerous. It's asking whether you've done it before. If the answer is no, it prepares for the worst. That's the amygdala, your brain's early warning system. Its job isn't to make you happy, it's to keep you alive. It would rather trigger 100 false alarms than miss the one danger that matters. If you grew up somewhere mistakes were constantly criticized, your amygdala learns to get more sensitive over time. A little criticism from your boss, an awkward text, a negative comment online. For someone else, nothing. For a brain trained to expect rejection, it can feel enormous. Here's the part that makes modern life so exhausting, though. The mountain lion was a sprint. You saw it, your body flooded with adrenaline, you ran or you fought, and within a couple of minutes it was over one way or another. Resolved. Your nervous system got to reset. Modern threats don't work like that. You send a message and watch it sit there with blue ticks and no reply, for hours, sometimes days. You submit a job application and then wait 2 weeks not knowing if you're being considered or already forgotten. Someone leaves an odd comment in a meeting and you replay it 11 times before bed. None of these are dangerous, but none of them resolve quickly either, and your amygdala doesn't have a setting for mild threat, indefinite duration. It just stays partially switched on. That's the real cost. Not one big scare, but a low hum of alert that never fully turns off. Checking your phone for a reply, rereading an email before you send it, bracing slightly every time your boss's name pops up in your inbox. It's quiet enough that most people never notice it's happening. They just feel tired for reasons they can't explain. Your brain isn't broken. It's just working overtime on threats that were never supposed to last this long. There's another part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, where your best thinking happens. Planning, problem solving, self-control. But when your brain thinks you're in danger, that part goes quiet. Stress hormones rise, the amygdala takes over, and logic takes a back seat. That's why smart people freeze in interviews, why athletes choke under pressure, why the perfect response occurs to you halfway through the drive home. Your brain wasn't trying to make the best decision, it was trying to make the safest one. Understanding that changes the question. Instead of "what's wrong with me," you start asking, "what is my brain trying to protect me from?" So why do some people eventually become confident while others stay stuck for years? It's not that they were born fearless. A lot of it comes down to something psychology calls self-efficacy, one of the strongest predictors of whether someone takes action when things get hard. It's just one question: do I believe I can handle this? That belief isn't something you're born with. It's built one experience at a time. Think about learning to drive. First time behind the wheel, you're thinking about everything: mirrors, speed, traffic lights. A few months later, you're having full conversations while driving, barely remembering the trip. What changed wasn't the car, it was your brain. It collected enough evidence to stop treating driving like a threat. I saw the same thing happen with someone I know after she lost her job. Not a dramatic comeback story, a slow, almost boring one, which is usually what real recovery looks like. The first thing she did wasn't send 50 applications. It was take on one tiny freelance project for a fraction of what she used to earn, just to prove to herself she could still deliver something start to finish. Then a slightly bigger project, then a referral from that client, which led to another. Nothing about it felt like momentum at the time. It felt like scraping by. But 18 months later, she had more clients than she knew what to do with. When I asked her what changed, she didn't talk about a mindset shift or a breakthrough moment. She said, "Confidence didn't come back on its own. I built it, one brick at a time. That's it. No lightning bolt. Just enough small proofs stacked on top of each other until her brain stopped bracing for disaster every time work came up." Confidence isn't positive thinking, it's proof. Confidence works the same way. It watches what you repeatedly survive and quietly files it away until it starts saying, "We've done this before." Unfortunately, the same mechanism runs in reverse. Grow up where every mistake gets criticized, where a B was never good enough, and your brain starts collecting different evidence. Don't mess this up, you're probably going to fail. After a while, those thoughts don't sound negative, they just sound true, but they're not facts. They're predictions built on old experience, and predictions can be updated. There's a related idea called learned helplessness. Apply for dozens of jobs, get rejection after rejection. At first you keep trying, then the energy fades, and eventually you stop applying. Not because you became lazy, because your brain reached a painful conclusion. Nothing I do makes a difference. Somewhere in there, the story quietly shifts from "this strategy didn't work" to "I don't have any discipline." The problem stops being the approach and starts being your identity. Psychologists have a name for what's actually happening underneath that: locus of control. It's just a fancy way of asking one question: do you believe the outcome depends on you or on everything outside you? When someone slides into learned helplessness, their locus of control quietly shifts outward. Suddenly it's the economy's fault, the algorithm's fault, the boss's mood, bad luck, bad timing. Some of that might even be partly true. But if every outcome depends on forces you can't touch, there's nothing left to do except wait. And waiting feels a lot like being stuck, because it is. Rebuilding confidence starts with dragging that locus of control back inward, even just a little. Not, "I'll fix my whole career." That's still too big, too external, too easy to fail at. It starts with picking one thing that is completely, boringly within your control, which is exactly why something as small as a 15-minute walk actually matters. It's not about fitness. It's a rehearsal for, "I said I'd do this and I did it." Proof that at least one outcome today depended entirely on you, and you delivered. If this is landing for you, hit like. It tells YouTube to show this to someone else who needs to hear it too. Now, Here's the part most people get wrong. Spend weeks preparing a presentation, have it go well, get complimented by your manager and two coworkers, then stop at a grocery store on the way home and have a stranger snap at you for taking too long to pay. Which moment replays in your head before you fall asleep? One bad moment outweighs 10 good ones. For most people, it's not the presentation, it's the stranger. Not because you're negative. Your brain was never built to remember comfort as well as it remembers danger. Forgetting where you found berries wasn't fatal for your ancestors. Forgetting where the bear was could get you killed. The bear is just an awkward email now. We also confuse behavior with identity. Skip one workout, I'm lazy. Freeze in one hard conversation, I'm just not confident. A single action quietly becomes a definition of who you are, but behavior isn't identity. Those are events, not verdicts. History is full of people who refuse to let one chapter become the whole story. A man who lost elections, watched his business fail, endured devastating loss, and kept moving anyway, not because he felt fearless, but because he refused to let setbacks write the ending. A teenager who didn't make his high school basketball team and instead of quitting, went back to the gym until his results caught up with his effort. Nobody remembers the rejection. Everyone remembers what came after. Neither of them waited to feel confident. They acted before it showed up, and every action gave their brain a little more proof that failure wasn't a final verdict, just feedback. So how do you teach your brain to believe something new? Not with a morning routine, not by waiting until you feel ready. You give it evidence it can't argue with. Most people, deciding to get in shape, tell themselves 6 days a week, cut sugar, wake up at 5, starting Monday. Their brain hears mountain, and mountains are exhausting and easy to postpone. Don't build a mountain, build proof. Compare that to deciding you'll take a 15-minute walk today. No dramatic transformation, just one thing you can actually keep. Your brain isn't measuring how impressive the action is. It's tracking whether you did what you said you'd do. Every yes strengthens trust in yourself. And self-trust, not hype, is the actual foundation of confidence. Stop asking, how do I become confident? Start asking, what would a confident person do today? The first question keeps you thinking. The second gets you moving. There's a quieter habit that erodes confidence just as much, keeping promises to everyone except yourself. You show up for a friend, you finish the project for your boss, but I'll start tomorrow keeps landing on a tomorrow that never comes. After enough of that, your brain starts treating your own word as unreliable, the same way you'd stop trusting a friend who always says, I'll be there, and never shows up. Keep one small promise to yourself today. A useful habit before bed, skip, was today perfect, and ask instead, what did I handle a little better than 6 months ago? What uncomfortable thing did I not avoid? What promise did I keep to myself? And be careful who you measure yourself against. Some people find the right career at 22, others at 50. Some businesses take off in 6 months, others take years. Judging your timeline against someone else's is like reading the last chapter of their book while you're still on chapter 3 of yours. The only comparison that matters is who you used to be. Here's something worth sitting with. The most confident-looking person you know has the exact same amygdala you do, the same fight-or-flight wiring, the same capacity for that stomach drop feeling before something new. They're not running different hardware. The only difference is they've collected more proof over more attempts that unfamiliar doesn't automatically mean dangerous. Confidence was never the absence of fear. It's the ability to hear the fear, notice it, and move anyway. Training your brain, one small rep at a time, to treat that flicker of nervousness as a signal that says, this is new, not this is a threat. My friend, the one from the beginning of this, he launched 2 weeks after that coffee, and the idea failed. Not dramatically, just quietly, the way most first attempts do, a slow trickle of interest that never turned into real traction. A few months ago I checked in, half expecting him to sound defeated. Instead he texted back, I'm already working on the next one, the fear is gone. That's the actual ending. Not success on the first try, momentum on the other side of trying. My friend is still, in a way, waiting for the day confidence magically arrives for the parts of life he hasn't started yet. Maybe you've done the same, waiting for the fear to disappear, for that moment you finally feel ready. But what if that moment isn't supposed to come first? What if confidence is waiting on the other side of the application you haven't sent, the call you haven't made, the first video you haven't published. Take the step. The confidence follows. Because once you take it, something shifts. Quietly, not all at once. Your brain starts collecting new evidence that you're more capable than you believed. That's how people actually change. Not by no longer feeling afraid, by no longer letting the fear be in charge. Years from now, you probably won't remember the day you finally felt confident. You'll remember the day you stopped waiting for it and moved without it. That'll be the moment everything began. If you needed this today, subscribe. I break down psychology like this every week. And if you want the next step, watch this video right here on how to actually build momentum once you've started.